then we get to this element of this lack of, and we touched on this earlier, but this lack of support from women in culture and in female role models generally. This is my favorite chapter I wrote in Toxic Maturity. I just did the audiobook for it earlier this week. And it's still true that I think the biggest problem and the biggest harm that really caused men to fall down into a pit for a very long time was that, our culture targeted and systematically eliminated male role models and leaders, starting with fathers. Fatherless homes, I think if we could fix one problem in society, if I could snap my fingers, fatherless homes and intact family structures, we would fix so many problems downstream from that. It would be unreal. And there's data behind this, by the way. And I think what's really interesting that kind of has come up recently is that this, if you really look at the landscape, and I think why this is affecting young women so badly is really what was exacerbated by women like Alex Cooper. And I hate to make it look like I'm dunking on Alex Cooper, even though I want to in this case. I think she deserves it to a large degree. But it's not necessarily Alex Cooper that is the problem, even though she is a problem. It's really what caused Alex Cooper to be a thing and why Alex Cooper is so popular. Why is Alex Cooper so popular? And what I think it is it's the same issue that I just discussed with men. They have no role models. They have no one to look up to. I was having a conversation with my friend Stephen Jaworski and Hafiz Bayoku about this in Dallas a couple of weeks ago. Like, who are the women? Who are the women that society, that we can say to a young girl, look up to her? Like, she's it. I can't think of anybody. And this is actually really, it's interesting to say this now because this is actually a hidden benefit of the struggles of men over the last decade. Because again, all of this was kind of set off both for men and for women by institutional failure. So the former institutions that helped men flourish, like the church or bowling leagues or whatever, there's, Robert Putnam stuff, whatever. And so what men had to do was they said, okay, that doesn't work anymore. So we are going to build up alternatives of other institutions where people could help them. And what's happening now is that they have a very robust set of role models for everything. And I think this is one of the things that really was, the left and the Democrats were so, they were so confused after the election because they said, like, well, why on earth would they listen to Theo Von? Like, he's this kind of country hit guy who, like, he talks about weird stuff, and like Joe Rogan is like, Joey Behar had that now infamous thing that Rogan has put in his bio where he's like, he believes in dragons, and she would like go like, why do people look up to him? Like, a guy's stupid. And so they were so caught off guard by, oh my gosh, young men like Joe Rogan and Tim Dillon and Andrew Huberman and Theo Von and Logan Paul and all of these other, like, why do they like these people? This is really ridiculous. But the reason behind that is that everybody else failed to appeal to men. They didn't listen to men. And then you had Chris Williamson, Alex Hormozy, everybody that I just said and more. You've had these rising figures in the alternative media space, in the alternative space compared to the old institutions. And really, this was built up and fed by men because men were looking for guidance. And they were looking for help from those old institutions, which they couldn't use anymore because they were inadequate. They couldn't help solve their problems. And they were looking for someone to help them, like I said. And now men have a very robust set of role models for everything. You want a health person, got them. A podcaster, got them. Political figure, got them, etc. Like all of this system, the manosphere, and I think this is, the manosphere gets kind of a bad rap by me and by others. But if we're looking at kind of like the manosphere in terms of like who do men listen to, who do men go to for advice, there's a lot of choices out there, and that has been developed over time because it was so bad and the culture was so anti-male, and largely still is, that they said, you know what, I'm not even going to listen to any of these people anymore. I'm just not going to do it. And they are now turning to alternatives, which is the alternative media space and everyone in it. Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, like Chris Williamson, all these people. And not a single one of them is perfect. Like no person is perfect. And I have my issues with all of those guys, to be honest. But it is far better than what women have to work with. And you look at the manosphere, the woman sphere, let's just call it that, the womanosphere. I don't even know if that's a lot of syllables. The woman sphere, let's just call it the woman sphere. So the woman sphere is so underdeveloped it's like non-existent, actually. So when you're really looking at this, I can hardly find any woman who I would want my daughter to look up to in the culture. Any woman. And that's saying something, because like I'm not like an anti-woman guy at all, because I like women. I just do. I think they're really nice people in most cases. But, you know, I don't want to marry one day, obviously. And so, but when I again, if I'm having a conversation with my daughter and I would say, you know, I want you to be like X, I can't solve that equation. I really can't. Like in past generations, they had a lot of examples of this, especially locally in the family. Like, but when you look at the culture, which dictates everything, culture dictates everything. Andrew Breitbart was really right about this, and he said everything is downstream from culture. Megyn Kelly, who I love, closeted feminist. We talked about her. It's my most popular video on YouTube for a reason, right? Closeted feminist. Michelle Obama, bitter, resentful, hates everything. I mean, it's like, you know, pick your poison. Like Fox News, like no. It's like Alex Cooper, no. It's like, you know, all of Angel Reese, no. Like, it's like all of these, you know, these just women are just so, they're just so lacking in any substance at all. I mean, the closest thing I could come to was maybe like Allie Beth Stuckey, who I genuinely like quite a bit. I just bought her book, her first book, you know, You're Not Enough and That's Okay, for a friend of mine at church, and she, I think, liked it. You know, maybe Caitlin Clark. I don't really know anything about Caitlin Clark, but she seems like a positive female role model, or whatever the saying is. But that's about it. And that's a very sad stage of affairs. And so then why has this happened? I really wanted to understand that, because I'm like, gosh, like this is such a big problem. This is a really big problem. Like, why do women have no role models? And I think why women have no role models now is because of what I had just mentioned. There is a certain thing that happens in this kind of cannibalization effect of women. And I think there's a certain thing that happens with older women compared to younger women. I want to leverage Jordan Peterson on this, because he really nailed this, and he's been talking about this a couple times. He's been talking about it more and more, because he's taking more interest in kind of women's issues and why this is happening. So shout out to Dr. Peterson on this. So what Dr. Peterson, he's very focused on, obviously, religious archetypes, story archetypes, all those type of things. And he defines this as what he calls the evil queen effect. So if you remember the story of Snow White, who's the fairest in the land? Snow White was judged the fairest by the land, or the fairest in the land by the mirror, and the evil queen did not like that, so she tried to kill her and everything like that, all that big, you know, whatever. And so essentially what the root of that is jealousy. The evil queen is jealous of Snow White because she's the fairest in the land. She's the younger woman, the more attractive woman, whatever. And so she slanders her via reputation, and then eventually tries to kill her and leaves her out to dry because she, the evil queen, is no longer the fairest in the land. And what Dr. Peterson has said, and this is a very bold thing to claim, very brave thing to claim, because it's true, I think. What his ultimate point was on this is that there is no greater hindrance to younger women succeeding than successful women. This goes back to my point about the patriarchy ain't holding you back, honey. Men ain't holding you back. Society ain't holding you back. Women are holding you back. Other women, probably women you're friends with, probably women you look up to. And hopefully it's not the case, but it is in the culture. For sure it is. They always rip each other down more than they lift one another up. That is a constant throughout human nature, throughout women's nature, I think. Like there's a lot of evidence for that. And I think that is very true inside of this culture, because women are so territorial about what's theirs, and they have good reason for that, for sure. Men are as well. But to do that, they don't want women to ascend, to come up to them, to do everything else in that way, and like all that kind of stuff. And so what this has led to, if for young women, Alex Cooper, again, I'll use her as the example here, I have no help from older women, no older women in media want to help me, fine. I'm going to create my own lane. I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to be a strong, independent woman, a boss babe. So the inmates are now effectively running the asylum, the cultural asylum for women. And the best definition for this is Alex Cooper. The best definition. You don't want to let me in media. You don't want to give me a job. You don't want to do whatever. Fine. I'll talk about my sex life on camera, on microphone. My parents can hear me. My family can hear me. All my exes can hear me. All the men that want to date me and eventually marry me can hear me. I don't care. I'm going to put myself out there in that way. I'm going to do that to myself. And since no older women have adopted the responsibility to do this to help bring up the next generation of younger women, this is a fault of older women in this scenario. Younger women, Alex Cooper, etc., have made up a new class out of whole cloth to be these women for themselves. And this has just been a disaster from every possible angle. And like, I'll take the heat off Alex Cooper for a second. Like Candace Owens, I was having Hafiz Bayoku, my friend, was talking about this once, and or a couple weeks ago when we were getting dinner. I thought this was such a smart point. So Candace Owens has a new book coming out, I believe, later this year, called "Make Him a Sandwich," and it's her on the front cover. I think it's she did a parody of like the Chick-fil-A ad where she's holding up like the picket sign with like, you know, it has the title like make him a sandwich or whatever. And the subtitle is something like, you know, why feminism sucks, or like, you know, what real femininity means or whatever. And he made this point where he's like, what woman is going to read that book? Who's going to buy that book? Men are going to buy that book because they're like, yeah, Candace, like go get him, like whatever. No woman is going to read that book. No woman's going to read that book. Alex Cooper apparently is writing a book. No, who's going to? Really? It's a disaster from every possible element. It is a disaster. Young women have no women to look up to in the culture, in the home, which is just, I mean, it's horrible. It's unbelievably sad because we cannot get ahead as young people without older people to look up to. And with women collectively not having any women to look up to, it's a sad sight, just a sad sight.